Welcome to Exploring A Course in Miracles podcast. I'm Emily Bennington with the Circle of Atonement, and I'm here with Circle founder Robert Perry. And today our topic is, what does the Course say about blessing? Blessing is a word and an idea that is so woven into our everyday that it's almost invisible. We say bless you when someone sneezes. We say bless or bless your heart when someone is in pain. We offer a blessing before a meal. And so, again, the idea of blessing is everywhere in our culture. And what's interesting is that it's everywhere in A Course in Miracles as well. There are close to 300 references to bless, blessing, or blessed in the Course. And as usual, the Course has its own unique things to say about this idea. So that is the inspiration behind this podcast. And really just zooming back a bit, Robert, you've been talking about the idea of blessing on and off since last May when you hosted a prayer gathering around it. And so just to get us started here, can you share what's been so inspiring to you about this topic personally? Because it really has stuck with you. And that's saying something, because we talk about all kinds of different Course concepts all the time, but this one has really, really resonated with you. So tell us a little bit about why.
Yeah, I've been kind of semi-aware of it as an important concept and practice. I've been intrigued by stories in which a holy man or spiritual master can transmit a kind of a blessing. That in India, they call it Shaktipat. I was intrigued by David Spangler's book called Blessing, the Art and Practice. He has a whole long history with blessing. He teaches blessing. But like you said, it was really this past May when I did the prayer gathering that it really clicked for me what an important topic and widespread topic this is in the Course. After that, I hung on to these key 4 practices from the workbook where we actively bless others, and have used them, not as much in recent months as in the earlier months, but still use them as I'm especially out in public, shopping or whatever, driving. And just recently, I really connected with it because, as I said in our recent Sunday gathering, I've been really into the idea that our current way of thinking is primarily attack thoughts, and that our way of looking at the world comes out of those attack thoughts, which is why we see an attacking world. And what I realized was the alternative to that is to have all of our thoughts and all of our perceptions be blessing. Sounds impossible, but the Course has a way in which that's where we're going to get eventually. And the idea that my mind, which is admittedly somewhat critical and judgmental, and a quality that kind of makes me sick, even while I apparently cling to it, could be replaced with this pure kindness of just constantly blessing. That
Yeah.
captivated me and kind of electrified me, actually.
And I caught your bug because one of the things that the Course talks about all the time is the inherent holiness that we have. And holiness is a hard word for some of us to wrap our head around as when it comes to us. We think that it's just too lofty, it's just too divine, we're too flawed and imperfect here. But when you said holiness just blesses, for some reason that clicked in my head that, oh, I could get in touch with my holiness if I just have a perception of blessing. And what's intriguing to me about this idea is that we're all looking for spiritual gifts. We're all trying to find a way that we can just be more advanced on this path. And blessing feels like an entry level spiritual gift because it's something that anyone can do. We can all bless others. And it's not that it's not a very important spiritual gift because it's an entry level one. This is what Jesus did with his life. But it just feels like blessing is something that we can all do to like get a handle on our spiritual practice, get in touch with our holiness, and who knows, it could develop into more advanced spiritual gifts if we stick to it.
Well, and blessing itself can be, a top level spiritual gift as you advance in it. The Course, I think, would say it can do miracles. It can heal the sick and raise the dead.
Roger that. So let's talk about the conventional view of blessing. What do we tend to think about when we think about blessing?
Yeah, I've tried to come up with a definition that's been kind of fluid, and it's my attempt to capture what is understood in the culture about blessing in spiritual traditions and in the Course. So this is meant to be kind of a catch-all definition. And here's how it goes. Goodwill or good wishes toward another person that is understood as directly and intentionally bestowing a holy gift on that person. And I'll go ahead and read it again. Goodwill toward another person that is understood as directly and intentionally bestowing a holy gift on that person. And in a religious context, when you're doing that kind of blessing, you're acting as a mediator for divine blessings that are coming through you to that person. Now, that's the act of blessing others. Blessing, there are other senses of the word blessing where God is blessing us, for instance, or we're asking for God's blessing on ourselves. But our focus here is on the act in which we extend blessing.
I've always thought about blessing as just having good fortune, or people say, "Oh, I'm so blessed," or the act of granting favor to someone or for something, like a father grants permission for his daughter to be married, like he gives his blessing, or a mother gives her blessing, that kind of thing. But as I was doing research on the conventional views of blessing, what you're saying really stands out. It's the imparting of a spiritual gift, or the imparting of divine favor from one person to another. So something is actually being transferred from one person to another. And that's a cool way to think about it.
Well, and it's something that I think people generally connect with. When I did that prayer gathering last May on blessing, I discovered that while I was just getting into it, lots of the people in our community had really already had a whole connection with it. There's something really attractive about the idea that simply by wishing you well, I can transmit that wish and have it give you something. It can become a reality just by the act of wishing. Like, what a great idea.
And that is very much in line with the Course's view of blessing. So let's get into that.
Yeah. Well, I've been through the blessing passages, and there are a lot of them. As you said, there's nearly 300 references to it. And there's a whole thought system. Of course there is. We always find that with the Course. And the basis for it is God's blessing of us. He has fundamentally, according to the Course, blessed us with, it's not really about material blessings. It's with who we are, what we are. He's blessed us with a nature that possesses wholeness, grandeur, abundance, holiness. And out of that foundational generosity to us in what he created us to be, or created us as, we have this well from which we can bless. And because of that completeness he gave us, to the extent we're in touch with it, we don't need to take. We can afford to just give because he has given so much to us.
There's that great quote in the Principles that says, "Those who perceive and acknowledge they have everything have no need for driven behavior of any kind." And it's a really interesting idea because so much of our behavior is driven. And so much of that driven behavior comes from a sense of lack. a sense of scarcity. We don't know that we have everything because it doesn't feel like that. We feel that scarcity within us, which causes the driven behavior. And what he's saying throughout the course is you don't need to behave in driven ways. You just need to recognize that you have everything that really matters in the end, because you are still as God created you.
Yeah, which is a state of abundance. Yeah, there are at least two references to driven behavior in the early part of the text, and they both associate it with a sense of being lacking within, of being not whole, being needy. And the idea is perfectly logical. If you feel super lacking and needy, of course your behavior will be driven.
I think one of the quotes that you're referencing is, from your grandeur, you can only bless because your grandeur is your abundance. And it almost sounds too much to think of ourselves in terms of grandeur. How can we really see ourselves this way when so much of what we see is through the lens of that scarcity and lack? But it's not arrogant in the course to think of yourself with this kind of abundance and grandeur, because it's not that you have it and no one else does. It's that you have it and everyone does too. So it's actually a humble position to know that you are as God created you and everyone else is too. And so it's when we understand that, then we have a full well from which to bless others.
Right, right. And what we're seeing with this first point is something we'll see again and again. And that is, the course takes blessing as we know it, where you wish someone well, and through that, you think you're conferring some benefit directly on them. It takes that concept and just gives it all kinds of support, all kinds of reasons to do it, so that it takes away, I think, our sense of, well, there are exceptions I want to make. I'm not sure how much I can do this. I've got to take care of myself and so on. So here's one way in which the course is saying you can just bless because you have just been blessed by God.
And that is hard sometimes, because if we understand that we can just bless, oftentimes we're thinking the other person doesn't deserve it. And so we can't get in touch with that desire. So it's not only that we can't get in touch with the fact that we have everything, we can't get in touch with the fact that the other person does too. And so therefore they deserve our blessing. So what do we do when we just can't connect with this idea, or we're thinking that the other person doesn't really deserve our blessing?
Well, in the course, our blessing is completely rooted in how we see the other person. Okay, we can't truly wish them well if we think they're sinners deserving of punishment, if we think they're worthless, if we think they're pathetic losers, right? How can you truly wish someone well when you think that? So in the course, blessing is all about how we see them, and we need to see them as sons of God who are in their true nature, are holy, are abundant, are blessed, completely by God. There's a great line in Lesson 37, which is about blessing. My holiness blesses the world. And it says, and he, in this case, your brother, is entitled to everything because it is his birthright as a son of God. So if we are seeing somebody as a son of God who by his birthright is entitled to everything, that's the kind of perception out of which blessing comes. And I think this is a really important point, because we want to wish people well, but we often feel really constrained, right? And it's because our perception of them is not conducive to wishing them well. We need to elevate our perception of them. And the Course recognizes this key connection between blessing and perception. So there are prayers where we ask God to bless our sight or bless our eyes today. The Course speaks of us looking upon the world with the grace of God upon our sight. So we need God's blessing in our sight so that we can see people in a truly blessing kind of way.
That idea is so cool about spiritual sight. I'm doing these daily text videos and I'm in the miracle principles now where the course talks about the spiritual eye. And I love the idea that there's a faculty within us that just sees that truth in the other person. It has nothing to do with our physical senses, so it has nothing to do with our physical sight. But there's a holiness in us that sees the holiness in the other person, and that's what we're asking God to give us. To when we ask God to bless our sight, aren't we asking Him to give us that's open that spiritual eye so that we can
Yeah.
see other people truly?
Yeah, it's a really great connection, the spiritual eye connection, because those early principles say that the spiritual eye is the mechanism of miracles. It's the thing in us that produces miracles. And miracles, again and again, I did one count and found 10 times. I did another count and found 13 times. I'm not sure which it is. But again and again, he says miracles bless. Miracles are a blessing. And so if the spiritual eye is the thing in us that produces miracles, it is also the source of blessing in us.
And the course even goes so far as to say that we should be blessing even in the face of an attack, which we find difficult as well, obviously. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're the one being attacked, it can feel so hard to bless in the face of it. But if you're the one observing a situation and you see the person being attacked respond with blessing, is practically the most inspiring thing on this earth. So we should covet this idea.
We love the quote unquote radical nature of Jesus's teachings, and the most radical of all of his teachings is love your enemy. And so we love calling Jesus a radical teacher, but when it comes to actually applying the radical nature of his teachings, we have a problem with that. And I think that it's really helpful to keep in mind that when someone is attacking you verbally or even physically, they're not doing that from a place of spiritual abundance. They're doing that from a place of spiritual poverty. And there's a couple of quotes here. They're a little
Great
long.
quotes.
I'm not sure which ones to read. Robert and I couldn't figure out which. I liked one, he liked the other, so I guess I'll just read them both. The first one is, when a brother acts insanely, he's offering you an opportunity to bless him. His need is yours. You need the blessing you can offer him. There is no way for you to have it except by giving it. So let's just pause there and talk about that quote for a minute, because the idea that when a brother acts insanely, he's offering you an opportunity to bless him says that you need the blessing that you can offer as much as he does.
Yeah, which is a great idea. And it takes some of the condescension that can come with blessing an attacker out of it, right? You both need your blessing. He needs it because, as Jesus says elsewhere, those who attack are poor. So by virtue of his attack, he's showing he's poor, he's in need. And so he needs your blessing. Your blessing can awaken him to his abundance. But you also need your blessing. And we'll get to this a bit later on. But the benefits to us of offering blessing, that's one of the main themes in the course's teachings on the subject.
And the other quote is, every attack is a call for his patience, his being the Holy Spirit's, because it's a capital H, because only his patience can translate attack into blessing. Those who attack do not know that they are blessed. They attack because they believe they are deprived. Give therefore of your abundance and teach them theirs. So there's that idea again of it's from a place of spiritual abundance that we can bless the other person even in the face of an attack. But I love that idea that every attack is a call for the patience of the Holy Spirit, because only his patience can translate attack into blessing. I mean, there's where you see true spiritual development, right? Like, that's Jesus level, where you're being attacked and you just see that as an opportunity to bless. That's amazing. I think that's among the most advanced spiritually that
Sure.
we can be here on this planet. It goes back to what we were saying about the 10 traits of the spiritually advanced in our series. It's like, if you want to be spiritually advanced, show me that you're a good person. And personally, like, I love heightened meditative experiences. I love hearing the stories, but I'd rather have the story of the person who loved in the face of an attack. That to me is true spiritual advancement. That's what Jesus demonstrated here. And so this quote just kind of cuts to the heart of what we're being asked to do, which is bless in the face of attack. That's so hard. Do you want to say anything about it?
Well, and the word patience is key there. So in the face of attack, we're called upon to channel divine patience, patience from the Holy Spirit. And our doing of that can turn this attack situation into a true blessing.
Yeah. And it also, this quote gives us some clue as to, it's saying we're calling upon the patience of the Holy Spirit so that we can bless in the face of an attack. And we're seeing the other person as abundant too. It gives us some insight as to how the Holy Spirit sees us, and therefore it gives us a model for how to demonstrate his patience with others. The Holy Spirit sees us as whole. We're asked to see others as whole. And from that place of our wholeness and seeing theirs, we can just bless.
Yeah, it's really remarkable how often, in going through the passages on blessing, that our blessing is seen as a passing on of the blessing from God and the Holy Spirit that's been given us. Mm-hmm. We're always just taking what we have received from them and then passing it on in the form of our own blessing.
So oftentimes at this point, students will say, well, isn't offering a blessing in the face of an attack naive, dangerous, enabling more abuse, et cetera, et cetera? So let's talk about that concern, because it comes up very often.
It does. Yeah. I mean, I think that what he's really asking us to do is something different than what many of us do in those situations where we feel like we're constantly being attacked. First of all, I think that when we play the martyr, which he talks about in the Song of Prayer supplement, we may act like we're being blessing and forgiving, but we're silently accusing. And it's all about how good we are, right, in the face of attack. There's a whole undercurrent of unspoken accusation coming from us. Another thing I think to say is that when we just stay in a situation that's unhealthy, that is stuck, where there's a lot of abuse, we're not doing that out of a sense of our inner abundance, right? We're doing that out of a sense of weakness and neediness and fear, right? What he's talking about here is getting in touch with the inner abundance that comes from God's blessing on us, and out of that, extending blessing. And there are times when it's best to do that on your way out the door. I mean, we can't make that a blanket kind of statement, but there are times when, if you feel strong enough inside, you're not afraid of what they're going to say or think about you or do. When you feel that abundance inside, you don't need them to respond in a certain way and give you what you've always wanted. You're free. And so the state he's talking about is not playing the martyr, and it's not playing the needy, chained person.
There's a discussion about, are we on our way to the extinction of society as we know it through climate change and nuclear weaponry, et cetera, et cetera. And those seem like the obvious ways to make ourselves extinct. A less obvious way is our infighting. Like, we just absolutely cannot get along. And part of the reason why we can't get along is because we are so good at holding grievances against one another, and we're not as good at forgiving. There's I'm paraphrasing here, but there's another quote in the Course that says, "As I look about, I condemn the world that I look upon, and I call this seeing. I hold the past against everyone and everything, making them my enemies." And doesn't that just speak to this idea that when someone has made a mistake, they've attacked us somehow, we hold on to it and we call that wisdom, and we never forgive. We make them pay. If we stay or we go, we're holding the judgment of them and the hatred of them in our mind. And again, as it says, we call this seeing. Like, is this what's going to heal the world?
Well, I
And
think without that, we'd be in a paradise. Without that single thing, we would have a world that was an amazing place of harmony.
I was a real yeah, but person on this topic, where it was like, okay, if you're being asked to bless in the face of an attack, doesn't, I was the person who was like, doesn't that just enable the person to continue with their abuse? And you kind of wrestled me to the ground on the idea that, can we just stop for a minute and appreciate the beauty of what it is that he's saying before we get into the yeah buts? And that's something that I would encourage anyone listening to do before you get into like the stiff spine about this message and could it be dangerous and is the Course spiritually bypassing. Just take in what it is that he's saying here and the power it has to heal our planet and reverse some of the ills of society that do threaten to make us extinct.
Yeah. And I know we need to move on, but it's like, why is that question coming up? Is it because you are facing an extreme situation and you genuinely need to know? Or is it because you're using an extreme situation to basically defend yourself against the principle and kind of dismiss the whole principle?
And dismiss the Course.
Right.
And dismiss those who are delivering the message of unconditional forgiveness, including Jesus. Look what happened to him. Yeah. And I think it just really comes down to a simple concept that the Course understands very well. What heals? Love or attack? And if you want to heal, then love is the force that's going to heal. And if you just want to stay in hell and try and put your bloody hands on heaven, then keep attacking and holding that grievance.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing is the Course does offer us a series of blessings throughout the workbook, and we wanted to highlight 4 of them in particular. And this is for anyone who's thinking, okay, I get the concept of blessing. I want to make it part of my spiritual practice. Now, what do I do?
Yeah. So these are actual blessing practices where we're instructed to bless others. So there are 4 that fit that exact model. I mean, we could pick more that sort of fit the model, but lesson 37, My Holiness Blesses the World, has us say to ideally anybody we come across during the day, anybody we meet, as well as anybody we're upset at, we say, My holiness blesses you, and then we supply their name. And the idea, it's easy to read that as I bless you, but it's the holiness in me that is the source of that blessing. As we've been saying all along, it's what God blessed us with that we then pass on to others in the form of blessing. So then the second one is lesson 127, There is no love but God's. And there, at least 3 times every hour throughout the day, we think of someone, different people, obviously, throughout the day, and bless them. We say these lines, I bless you, brother, with the love of God, which I would share with you. Not so much give to you, but like so that we both have it, okay? For I would learn, we've already said, I'm blessing you with that love. For I would learn the joyous lesson that there is no love but God's and yours and mine and everyone's. That's probably my favorite one. And then in lesson 137, as I am healed, I am not healed alone. We say, as I am healed, I am not healed alone. And I would bless my brothers, for I would be healed with them as they are healed with me. And then finally, in lesson 188, the peace of God is shining in me now. We repeat that line and say, let all things shine upon me in that peace, and let me bless them with the light in me. So notice again, I'm not just blessing them, I'm blessing them with the light in me. Again and again, we're drawing from that well that God placed in us so that we can bless others. So what I did after that May prayer gathering we had was I just kept using those four, especially as I was out amongst people. And it's a great thing to do if you're driving along, better than judging the guy by the roadside or the driver in front of you, the driver behind you. Why not bless them?
It is a really powerful idea and practice. Was it lesson 37 that we were doing at Subway the other day, where it was like, my holiness blesses you, stranger?
Right. Right.
And
Anybody you meet, you're supposed to say, my holiness blesses you, and then give their name if you know their name.
it was a really good exercise. I remember you and I just were talking all day about how much we were getting out of it. And it just felt like such a warm and kind thing to do, a really quick way to get that kind feeling in us. But I'm so glad that you mentioned that it's the holiness, almost like its own separate entity, that's blessing the other person, because otherwise there is the temptation to say, to think like, I'm blessing you, but that's not it. It's not you. It's the holiness. It's the divine holiness within you that's blessing the holiness within the other person. I think that's an important distinction to draw out.
Yeah, and I think it's fine to say you're blessing them. I mean, lesson 137 says, I would bless my brothers. But the understanding throughout the course is that you're blessing them with that well of holiness and light and grandeur within you that God placed there, that God blessed you with. So you're passing a blessing on that you've received. And I want to say a bit more about our practice of lesson 37, which is about a week ago. Well, we didn't spend the entire day at Subway. We were on the road, and we had our timers going off. And what I loved about that day was in some of the practice periods, I got glimpses of what has really captivated me about this idea, glimpses of a state of mind that is a blessing state of mind. Not a state of mind where you're kind of neutral towards people and you occasionally bless, which frankly is what we were doing, but a state of mind in which the blessing was the state of mind. Your mind was just in this state of blessing. And, I didn't get there, but I felt there was like glimpses of it. There was a sort of a feeling, a light in the air that was about that. And it was like towards the end of the day, like late afternoon. But that was a great feeling. That's what I want, is that state of mind.
That's what I was saying earlier about, it's just an easy way to get that love and kindness in you so that you can give it. So often we wonder, like, how do I get out of this funk? How do I change my state? And one of the simplest and easiest ways to do that is to give a blessing to someone else, because it's not only good for them, but it feels good to you too. And that day, I just remember everybody had like a little sheen on them that they don't normally have. And you're like, I remember looking at this older gentleman in Subway, and I was like truly rooting for him. And it's like, to get his sandwich.
It was a bit of an epic journey from the car to the Subway counter for him.
Yeah, he was struggling. But I feel like before, without the benefit of the lesson, I would probably not have taken much notice to how he was struggling and what his life must be like, etc. And just the act of giving him a blessing was it was a moving day. And then, of course, the sharing of it, the talking about it with each other made it even more meaningful. So it's just a practice that we can all benefit from.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So the main goal, as we say so often here on this podcast and in classes and whatnot, the main goal of the course is vision. And vision is the idea of seeing the holiness in all things. And the course says something really interesting about this. It says that if we can get to a place where we do see with vision, our perception will automatically bless everything that we look upon. And so let's talk about that for a minute and also contrast this experience of vision to the way that we currently see.
Yeah, that has been perhaps the single most impactful part of this whole concept for me, because something in my mind has assumed, okay, I've got to not have attack thoughts. And the course is training our minds to release our attack thoughts. And then my mind assumes that once you get rid of your attack thoughts, you're in this kind of neutral state, right? Like, how could you be in a state of blessing everyone and everything? Just seems impossible. So I assume my mind would get to this without really thinking about it, this neutral place. But he's saying that if you're in the state of vision, simply your perception is by its very nature blessing. And so everything you look at without effort, automatically, simply by the act of you looking at it, is being blessed by you. There's a great line in one of the prayers in part 2 of the workbook that says, help me, you're saying to God, help me to use the eyes of Christ today, that the Holy Spirit's love may bless all things that I may look upon, that his forgiving love may rest on me. So if I use the eyes of Christ, if I see with vision, as you were saying, then the Holy Spirit's love will look through me and bless all things that I may look upon. What an amazing idea. It's like, imagine everywhere you look, anything you just look at for half a second mindlessly has been blessed, because that is the very nature of your perception. Wow.
And you were talking earlier about the connection between blessing and the miracle that you made, miracle being an expression of love. And it reminds me of one of the videos I just did about Miracle Principle 44, where it says miracles arise from a miraculous state of mind. The state of mind goes out to anyone, even without the awareness of the miracle worker himself. So it's like, it's an amazing idea that your love almost has its own ability to go out from you to anyone, anywhere, even without you directing it. And I guess if blessing is equated with love, then it's the same thing as being said. It's like you're just in that miraculous state of mind, and your blessing has the ability to do its own work in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. That's incredible. Yeah, imagine having a mind that is that like purely good and beneficent. The thing that I've been doing is just imagining, because I'm not anywhere near there, but just imagining that my perception was so saturated with blessing that merely the act of looking at anything means I'm blessing it. And if you think about that and kind of imagine it to be true, just in the abstract as an imagination exercise, it's incredible. It feels really good.
It is amazing. And that's why, you were saying before that when you say like, I bless you, that's part of the course's practice. But I was saying that what inspires me is just thinking about the holiness within me is blessing the holiness within the other person, because it gives it that like divine quality. Mm-hmm. And going back to the idea that blessing imparts something, you have the ability with your blessing to impart that divine understanding on their,
or
like,
some
to
gift
their,
or
to
benefit.
their mind. Yeah. So that's the real kind of juice behind this idea. I think it's not just that you're like, oh, I bless you, I'm blessing you. Somebody sneezes and you're like, I bless you. It's like, no, there's a holiness in you that can bless the holiness in the other person and something in their minds receiving it.
Right.
And that's the gift. That's the spiritual gift that you have right now that you can give to someone else. And as you give it, you strengthen it within yourself. And that's amazing.
Yeah. And the other thing I think we should say about how in the state of vision, our perception automatically blesses everything that I may look upon is that in lesson 37, which we've been talking about, My Holiness Blesses the World, it says that our current perception, rather than giving out of the abundance within us, it takes because we feel lacking. And how does our current perception take? I think on the simplest level, it takes because we feel needy. And so we're looking for desirable things in our environment. Okay. But maybe even more pertinent than that is it takes because it sees sinners out there and it thinks that if those sinners can pay their dues, if they can get their just desserts, that somehow satisfies us. And we feel that. I mean, there are certain public figures where we're thinking they've got to pay. Something in me will not, my appetite will not be satisfied until they pay. And so from the Course's standpoint, whether it's, we see things out there that we consider desirable, that we want to get from, or we see sinners out there where we want to get something from them paying, our perception is an act of taking. So the idea that our perception could turn all the way around and become an act of giving is a remarkable idea. And I think there is a sick feeling in the pit of our stomachs over all the taking that our perception does, even if we've never thought about it once in our lives.
There is a residue to judgment where you do it and then you slice someone in half in your mind and it doesn't feel good, even if it perhaps initially feels good, like for that split second it feels good, but the lingering effect is not good. And what an interesting idea that when we perceive with blessing, we're giving, and when we perceive with judgment, we're taking. And I think that's a relatively easy thing for us to grab a hold of. Of course you're taking when you judge someone else. And so it feels like a good vetting question to ask ourselves, like, are we giving or are we taking with our perception?
Well, when lesson 37 rolls around, when I'm doing the workbook, it's like, oh yeah, and I notice how much my perception is a taking mechanism. And then comes lesson 38 and I forget about it. But I want to hang on to that. I really do, because it's such an important idea.
And we wouldn't, just going back to the initial part of this podcast, we wouldn't be judging and taking so much if we didn't feel we lacked so much. Like we're trying to take from another person because we feel that sense of scarcity ourselves. So if we just understood the spiritual abundance that we have and the abundance of truth, we wouldn't feel the need to judge and to slice someone down so that we can feel on top. We would know that their gain is ours and vice versa.
Slice someone down?
Yeah.
Do you slice down?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I'm starting a trend.
Okay.
So there's a quote in the Course that says the miracle worker blesses rather than curses with projection. And I wanted to ask you whether projection in that sense is the opposite of blessing.
Yeah. Well, there's a place, that's not an exact quote, but it especially resembles something Jesus said to Helen when she refused to blame Bill for some trivial thing. Jesus said, thank you for blessing him with a miracle instead of cursing him with projection. And the idea is that a miracle, it just gives, it just blesses, right? You see the whole, out of the holiness in you, you see the holiness in them, and there is a transfer of a kind of a givingness and a benign power. With projection, we take what we see as the unholiness in us, which we can't stand being in us, and we try to hurl it outside onto our brother so that now it looks like it's gone from us. We're all clean inside. And now it's on him. He's the one who's so unholy. And of course, I mean, that's projection. And of course, that curses him. That says, you're evil and I'm good.
What an interesting way to think about it, that a blessing just gives and projecting onto someone is kind of a curse.
Yeah. And he does a few times, he contrasts the blessing of the miracle with a curse, or contrast blessing with curse, because so much of obviously how we currently see is filled with curse.
So I know that one of the most inspiring parts of blessing to you personally is that when we see the world with vision, when we see the holiness in all things, it's not just that we're blessing what we see, it's that what we see blesses us. And so do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, there's a few things I want to say about that. First of all, one of the things that came through clearly in looking at the blessing passages was that what's truly real, everything truly real by nature blesses. That blessing is the nature of reality. God just blesses. Okay. In our true nature, we just bless. And if we are seeing with the spiritual eye, with the eyes of Christ, we will see a kind of a hidden layer of the world, both in people and in everything, in living things, in things we would consider inanimate, where everything is blessing us. They may not be consciously aware of it, but somewhere deep in their nature, they're automatically blessing us just because of who they are. And the course has this great line in lesson 60 in talking about when we see the real world. He says, everyone and everything I see will lean toward me to bless me. Which is, if you imagine everyone and everything you see just leaning towards you, like your whole environment, to bless you. And that's what's real, even if on a conscious level, they might be cursing you. And then another example of this is in lesson 161, give me your blessing, Holy Son of God. And there you choose someone that you have resentments towards, you have anger towards, and you go through a forgiveness process. But the forgiveness process consists of beseeching the Christ in them, their true nature, to bless you. Give me your blessing, Holy Son of God. And so the implication is that whoever it is, no matter who we're faced with, if we see them truly, we will see a holy being, like a spiritual master in them, blessing us. And it's true with not just the people, the plants, the animals, the rocks, the plastic, you name it. And that it kind of gives a certain sort of equality in this whole blessing thing. We aren't the heroic blessers with all those, unredeemed people out there. If we really blessed and had the eyes to see, we'd see them blessing us and we'd thank them for their blessing of us.
That is an incredible idea, that
It is.
even if someone is in your face yelling at you, the true nature of who they are is loving you unconditionally and wants to be your friend, as the Course says, and is leaning towards you to bless you. And that takes real spiritual vision to see.
Yeah.
And it's only when you can see truly to the real nature of who they are that you would be able to respond with patience, to know that no matter what's happening, they're blessing you too. And that's the only thing that's real.
And what intrigues me, as you know, is that when people report experiences that we would call in the Course experiences of vision, they report that exact thing. And they often put it in the language of everything was loving me. The trees were transmitting love to me. Even inanimate objects were transmitting love to me. And another way to say that is, transmitting love. That's another way of talking about this concept here of blessing. They aren't just sort of feeling love. There's a transmission right? And blessing involves that transmission. So it's the Course saying that everything is blessing us. But when people experience vision, they experience that. Course students, non-course students, doesn't matter. There's a universal experience out there in which we can tap into this.
And we can tap into it here in these bodies. We don't have to wait until we have an NDE or until we're on the other side to experience the kind of love that is being described here. I love that contrast in the Course between what we think of as the real world and how the Course describes it. I mean, when we think of the real world, we think of this kind of cutthroat place where you have to elbow your way forward. And in the Course, the real world is just when you see things truly as they are, when you see the holiness in all things, when you see that the only thing that's really going on here is the true identity in you is loving the true identity in them, and vice versa. And we can get in touch, as you're saying, we can get in touch with that perception even now, amid all of the chaos
Yeah.
and destructiveness that happens in our world. And I
Yeah.
would even argue that it's only until we do get in touch with that we can bring that higher perspective down, that the chaos and the destructiveness will continue.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, from the Course's standpoint, what saves the world. I suspect you're mentioning NDEs and such because when people, come back and report their near-death experience, they often talk about a landscape in which everything was loving them. And what the Course is saying, and what people experience, is that here on Earth, we can have that same experience. Everything in the landscape can be loving us because on some level it is, and we just don't have eyes to see yet.
Personal aside, I've got a family member who has a very, very critical and judgmental husband. And her attitude towards him is the most inspiring thing to me. She never, ever, ever gets frustrated. She never gets flustered. She just kind of laughs and makes a joke, and their relationship in the end is really good. They've been married for 30 some odd years, maybe more than that, but I couldn't do that. And I think that part of her secret is that she just sees him as he really is. She knows that he's not intentionally trying to be harsh or anything like that. This is just how he communicates, and she's able to just see through the behavior to the truth of who he is. And that's the kind of secret to their marriage. But I've always just thought, gosh, if I could be more like that and not take offense at the tiniest little thing and then hold that as a judgment every time I think about the other person. If I could just be more like her, then life would be so much easier, and I'd be living more in alignment with what the Course is asking us to do. So
Yeah.
it would be a
we need
blessing to see
examples.
that way.
Yeah, we do need examples.
Yeah.
To show us this is possible.
Well, last question for you is, blessing is the way that we really discover how blessed we are. Blessing is the logical proof that we are blessed, as we've been saying. And so I feel like that's a good way to kind of wrap it up. We're, once again, giving to other people from what we have. We have to know that we have it in order to give it. So are there any closing thoughts that you want to say about that point, or blessing in general?
Well, it's sort of the big punchline, because yes, we do have a natural impulse to bless, but to the extent it feels like a sacrifice, or if it feels like it takes place at the expense of activities that would deliver more to us, we will not want to do it. And so the Course again and again and again talks about how much we benefit from extending blessing to others. There's a great passage in the beginning of chapter 14 in the text where he says, yes, you are blessed indeed. But then he says, but in this world, you don't know it. How can you discover it? He says, this is how you can learn to bless and cannot give what you have not. How can you give something you don't have? If then you offer blessing, it must have come first to yourself, and you must also have accepted it as yours. For how else could you give it away? This is why your miracles, again, equating miracles with blessing, offer you the testimony that you are blessed. So the idea is we don't know how blessed we are by God. Okay. And the way we find out is we give blessing, and that proves to us, since we can't give what we don't have, that proves to us we must have blessing. It's like a logical process that goes on in our minds. And so to put the whole sequence together, yes, we bless out of the abundance and completeness and holiness God gave us, but it's only once we bless that we truly find out how blessed we are. So it's kind of this cycle where we have to be in touch somewhat with the blessing he's given us, but until we pass that on and bless others, we won't really know how much he gave us.
That's such classic course logic, isn't it? Like we
Totally.
don't realize how blessed we are until we give it. We don't realize how forgiven we are until we forgive. We don't realize how healed we are until we heal. The course is constantly reinforcing that idea that to give and receive are one. And so, of
Constantly.
course, it would apply here to blessing as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think overall, what has continued to captivate me about the idea is a few things. One is to think that I'm just sitting on top of this like mountain of blessing from God. That's just the way he is. That's his relationship with me. That's captivating. And then the thought that, well, if I'm just receiving blessing from him, of course I would just bless. He talks about in the text, only healing and only blessing. So I can, because of what I receive from him, I can be in this state of only blessing. And as I've said, the idea that my state of mind could just be one continual act of blessing, I find that really captivating because that's not how my mind is now. So the whole thing, and the fact that we have these practices we can do, and of course we can make up our own. It's a great package that I hope it can become more recognized as a course topic. We know it's a topic in the culture, we know it's a topic in world religions, but we haven't really thought of it as a Course in Miracles topic, yet it is.
As you're talking about blessing and what's connecting with you, and I'm just reminded of the Sermon on the Mount where he's talking about the carefree lives that we can live because we know that we're under the care of an unconditionally loving God. So we're free to just bless. It's the same idea here. So the Sermon on the Mount 2,000 years ago, the message on blessing in the Course feel the same. And so we should really take it to heart. And one of the things that stands out to me just as we close here is that conventional view of blessing, of imparting something to someone else, we give to authority figures like priests and monks and whatnot. But the Course is giving it to us because we all have that holiness. We all have that ability to impart some kind of real spiritual blessing onto someone else. And we have to believe that it's there and believe that it works and believe that we can do it. And that is our attainable spiritual gift.
Yeah. And he talks about how every beneficent thought anyone's having anywhere comes and blesses us, and we should be grateful and want to bless them in return. So whether we think we have the power or not, we are using it at times. Everyone's using it at times, and those blessings are zipping around the globe. It's happening now. We just want more of it to happen.
And therein lies the responsibility for all of us to take these ideas seriously, heal our minds so that we can heal our world and heal each other. So, Robert, thank you. As always, I really appreciate how focused you've been on blessing, just how rooted it's become in you. And it's just inspiring to think that we can really go out there and live in this way. So appreciate you. Thank you to everyone who has joined us live. If you want to join us for these podcasts that we record every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, you're welcome to visit circleofa.org/events. They are free, and we look forward to seeing you in a future recording soon. Bye for now, everyone.